of these times I'm gonna actually straight up forget to hit record and the stream's gonna be gone. Which we haven't had one of those in a long time, actually. Where's my camera? We haven't had one of those in a long time. The last time we had that happen was the sealed library. But anyway, as I was saying here, explaining a little bit here. So these are torn along the inside of the thigh, which is a really common place to generally have happen with pants, but this is a bit more extreme than normal. As we can see, I can stick my whole hand through here, and really, you know, the pant has much more aggressive holes than it should. What happened is like this one on the left here, or like this one on my left, your right here, it got a little bit of wear and tear along the seam, and then something got into one of these little holes and yank, open it came. And so we've got a real big tear here, but a little less aggressive tear here. Now what I'm hoping I can do is I can take these patch fabrics and respectively 1, 2, right? They're labeled 3 and 4 because they were labeled at large when I was cutting and hemming all these patches previously. This is really good. I forget how good the Tetris Plus soundtrack is. It's a shame the game is not that great. Like, don't get me wrong, I love the concept of Tetris Plus. It's a really great game conceptually, but actually sitting down to play it, the rotation system is not going to hold up to my memory. So the idea here is we've got this pattern here from someone called Renbird Arts, and it's kind of a little bit of a fence gate looking thing. You know what I mean? And I'm hoping I can just kind of cut and place this in such a way that I can make it fit over both patches, but that might not be. So let's think with our brain before we go improvising. So this patch is 3 inches wide, minus the seams. Yeah, so this patch is, we'll say 3 inches wide, just for coverage. Both of these patches are actually 3 inches wide. And the pattern on this is... That's not helpful. 3 1/4 inches wide, or 3 3/4 inches wide, roughly. I'm eyeballing it a little. It's actually 3 1/2 plus 1/8 is 5/8, 3 5/8. So there's not enough of this pattern to cover both of these, because the patches are 4 inches long. That's not. No, that's a 6, brain. This patch is 6 inches long, and this patch is supposed to be 7 inches long. And so, because this is only 3, you know, what I said, it's only as wide as it is, and it's only, oh, we got a little bit of a whole tone, you know, we're remembering something going here. I haven't played this game in years, by the way. It's only 4 1/2 inches long, so it's not, this is not enough to cover, all of the pattern I need. So now we get to play America's favorite game of, can I duplicate this? I honestly almost wonder if I'd be better off waiting to try and duplicate this pattern until after we've got it stitched. Either way, I'm going to need a sheet of this. I'm actually going to cut a sheet of this dissolvable backing. Sorry, I'm kind of making improv decisions, which I just said I shouldn't do. But I am going to cut... hang on. Desk is a little busy. So, as you'll hear me explain here, in the process of moving some things around on my desk, accidentally fumbled the recording into stopping. So there's a little jump cut here. But I explained what we missed, so it's fine. Don't worry about it. That's weird. Yeah, I told you, I said start recording. And did it start recording? Yes, and then it just... oh! I must have hit a hotkey of some kind. I moved my, like, sheets of backing over across the table where the keyboard is off to my left, and along with the fabric we're going to be working on here. And it must have hit a key. It turned off the recording. You shouldn't see too much of a skip there in post. But anyway, we're going to take this backing. We're going to take our little rotary cutter, and we're going to... Rotary cutter. With great care. Like... So... Honestly, I'm kind of tempted to just cut this all the way, and you know what? I'm going to do that, actually, yes. I'm going to cut this the rest of the way, like so. Burp. It's not perfectly straight, but it's fine. And then we're going to cut this square at 7 inches long. That doesn't look like a straight cut to me, gang. Does it look like a straight cut to you? You know, nothing explodes if it's not perfectly square. So, I think what I'm going to do is this actually the right width for this? Did that happen to work out that I can just kind of whoomp? I can! Look at that! It's like I know what I'm doing or something. This fits perfectly. I can just cut off this square here to have later, and then we can just boop. Would that have been better had I set down my straight edge? Yes. Did I do that? No, for some reason. So now we have the unenviable task of trying to duplicate this pattern while it is on the so ordinarily, you know, tracing in an art context like this is meant to be used for reference purposes only. But I'm going to be real and honest with you. If I were not to be tracing this, I have eyes, I have a brain, I could sit here, and I have previously. I could sit here with my straight edge, my ruler, and do all the math out to get all of these lines correct. However, I'm fairly sure this is a fairly traditional Sashiko pattern, right? If you look at it, you can see, oh yeah, there's, if we turn it such that these ordinarily diagonal lines are square, it's a very simple pattern to set up. You know, it's that each of these lines is 3/4 of an inch, I'm gonna say, 3/4 of an inch apart, right? In comparison to normally they'd be a quarter inch apart. So it's just line, skip line, line, skip line, line, skip line, line, skip line on a grid. So ostensibly, this is repeatable, you know? It's not like I am out and out stealing this design. This design, that's the thing about Sashiko designs, is they're all geometric. Well, they all ought to be geometric anyway. Traditional Sashiko designs, let's say, are all geometric. So really, ostensibly what I could do is I could take this. Actually, you know what? Let's prove my point right here. Let's prove my point, and let's draw a 1/4 inch grid on here instead of directly drawing the design, so we just use our brain, huh? I like that a lot. I like that a lot better, actually. I feel more comfortable with that, especially on camera. I feel more comfortable with that on camera, that we are going to just duplicate a grid. And honestly, that's what I really should do with these full sheets of backing here, is I should take them to like a copy shop or a print shop or something and just have them print a 1/4 inch grid on here. Because then that's all like, bam, Sashiko is prepped, you know what I mean? So let's mark here. This is what? I've said this many a time. 7 inches long. So let's mark at 7 inches here. Mark, mark. Who's that Mark guy? I don't know. I bet he's a nerd. Now that we got our mark here, You know what? I know this end of the paper is straight. So what if I were to align this like so, and then just cut a little bit over 7? Yeah, I can do that. Yeah, that's not that far over 7, that's fine. So we're gonna cut that down to size, realize I have cut it incorrectly, get upset, throw things out the window. No. We're just gonna... Again, I really shouldn't be eyeballing this. You know, Sashiko is partially all about the prep. You know, getting good Sashiko is mostly a matter of prep time. So, you know, if I had thought 15 steps ahead here, I would have just drawn the 1/4-inch grid onto this before stream started, but I think it's important to show, you know, more than just the fun step more than just the stitching based step of the progress. You know what I mean? Oh yeah, we're only like 1/8 of an inch over. That's fine. That's absolutely fine. So we're gonna put a mark every 1/4 inch here. So 1/4 inch, 1/4 inch, 1/4 inch. And we're gonna make our little 1/4 inch grid. And it's just that simple. And then, as I've said, we have identified previously that we just skip every other and do standard stitching, and this pattern will emerge. So, as you can see here, hopefully, I'm just marking every 1/4 inch a little tick mark. And then we will extend these lines appropriately later across the page. And then using that grid, we can emulate this pre-done stitch backing. But that's I think part of what really attracted me to Sashiko in the first place is I like art that arises out of math. You know, I've been a woodworker previously, for example. Yeah, and then at the end there. That last line's a bit of a moot point, but I've been a woodworker previously, for example. And you know, that to me feels like imposing geometry to get a given effect out of wood. You know? So we'll just zoop each of these lines, and if they're very, very slightly off, well, they're all going to be very, very slightly off the same way, and so I'm not too worried about it. Really, the only problem here is me getting the paper straight, but that has never been a problem previously. I've gotten it close enough. This is not rocket brain surgery, you know? Close enough is allowed to be good enough around here. But that's the thing. The biggest thing about Sashiko to me is that it is essentially geometry forming patterns, right? And so in that, it makes Sashiko very prep focused. You know, if you can get everything prepped just so, it is much, much easier to do well and correctly. I'm beginning to realize this music, because each of these tracks is not as long as I think it is, this is not going to last as long as I think it will. But that's beside the point. I might... Hang on a second. Let me... Will I get exploded for playing the Allstate music? Unlikely. I mean, especially if it's the one I'm part of, I'm probably allowed to show it off. I mean... Tell you what. Oh, what do I have? It's Barber Shop. Oh, yeah, I can't play that on stream. That'll get me dinged. Tell you what, after the Tetris soundtrack here, I am gonna play a little bit of You know what, X-1's a good one that I don't mind talking over. Or actually, do you want Space Patrol? Decisions. This is why I don't like the big decisions live anymore. Yeah, we'll throw on some Space Patrol after this. Just add those to the queue. Okay, so let's keep doing our grid here. Did I already draw that line? Yes, I did. But anyway, good Sashiko is very easy if you get your prep done right. And I've found that this dissolvable backing is super good for that. Just because it's so simple to just stick it on and go with it. And so, like, when you're operating in the same fashion, when you're doing the same sort of thing in a repeatable fashion, it's very easy to get it repeatedly set up. Oh, I have an ad coming in about a minute and a half, so I'll have to keep an eye on that. But how have you all been? I've been big busy. You know, digging for contracts, obviously, as one must. But also, you know, this has been a great time for me to really catch up on hobbies, you know. And I don't say this a lot, but the show around here really is a hobby of mine. I tend to just say, well, how can this hobby intersect with being on camera when I'm looking for new content to make? As well exemplified by Paper Cuts. Which, by the way, did you know, Paper Cuts is a podcast? If you want to check it out in your favorite podcatcher, it will be over at papercutsbooks.libsyn.com. And we read books live. We read them live right over here, but it's also available in your personal favorite podcatcher. I would heartily suggest the Dracula episodes, as I think they were very fun to both record and release. But we've been doing a lot of popular stuff lately. For example, we had Guarding Gus relatively recently, the first 5 chapters of that, by gracious permission of the author. And speaking of which, Karen Nagel's actually doing the press rounds for advanced reader copies for What to Suspect When You're Suspecting. So if you are a person who likes to review books, I would suggest checking out the advanced reader copies for the sequel to Guarding Gus, What to Suspect When You're Suspecting. But, you know, while I've got the ad running, I should do a little bit more promotion of my own stuff, because as I have said on stream, and I need to get a little bit more familiar with my personal life, I gotta tell you guys about things that I'm doing, or no one will know they exist. You gotta let people know it's a real thing. So alongside Paper Cuts, we obviously have Tuesday night streams where I'm working on stuff and things even. And, you know, it kind of runs the gamut. We've done our fair share of video games, as, of course, we're streaming on Twitch, the video game website. But I also do things like this, where I've decided, oh yeah, I'm doing this in my spare time. Let me turn on the camera and point it at the table. Another really fun one we've done that is probably going to be especially relevant soon, at least relevant in my day-to-day life, is Monster of the Week prep. I've had a great time doing that on stream, you know, designing monsters, talking about, you know, tabletop preparation. We've done a lot of broad spectrum tabletop work as well. Just generally, you know, we've played a lot of solo tabletop RPGs. In fact, the original plan for tonight, I will pull back the curtain a smidgen. Originally, I folded these little zines, right, that of the Dungeon Hero rules, which we've played Dungeon Hero on stream here twice now. And originally the plan was that I was going to lug out the sewing machine and whip up those zines real quick. But I didn't like how the leveling came out on the mic for the what's the word I'm looking for here? For the when the sewing machine was on, so I need to tinker a little bit with my settings in that regard. That last one looks a little cramped, don't it? Well, that's what we get. That's what we get when we're trying to improvise. So now we come along here and we place. Let's go with the square edge that we know is square here. You know, it's like I've cut this edge and we know that's kind of got a little bit of a bend to it. What's up? Hello. What's going on, hon? I am putting guidelines on the pattern here because I noticed that this guy is just stitch one, skip one, stitch one, skip one, at a 1/4 inch spacing. So these are 1/2 inch apart.
Okay.
And so I figured rather than trying to duplicate the pattern directly, I think it would be more
efficient.
Yeah, it'd be more efficient and probably a little more equitable in case this person did design this pattern on their own, to rather than directly duplicate the pattern, to put in a grid and duplicate it manually.
Ah, I see. I just wanted to see what was left.
Context for who was off screen just there. That's my lovely partner, Rads. Do you have commissions open right now?
Technically, yes.
Yeah,
she
has.
I actually have her closed though.
Oh, fair. So, she is an artist in her spare time. She has done the delightful emotes of Library and Magnus that we see plenty of around here. Are you willing to do emotes for other people, or is it full pieces that you're aiming for?
I can do emotes, I just need to figure out pricing.
That's fair. So she doesn't have pricing outset for emotes, but she has commissions open at Razmatazic on Twitter, or is it? It's something Solar Volts, right?
Something like that.
Yeah. Put it in the chat. I'll put it in the show notes when this comes to YouTube.
Okay. Bye, Internet.
Bye. But these are actually her pants that we're working on. I said 1/4 inch, didn't I? Yes, I did. Isn't she a delight? I love every moment I get with her. So we know this line is reasonably straight, right? Because we used the straight edge, so we should work from the straight line. So 1/4 inch here, here. This obviously is going to result in a lot fewer lines because it is less wide than it is tall. But once we get this grid down, like I said, what I really should do is I should just make a little, I should open up an image editor. Some people prefer Photoshop, for example. I should just open up a little image editor and make a little 1/4 inch grid, just throw something together, and then just have it printed onto this backing paper. Just do it up, It'd be a lot faster than doing it by hand. That said, we're making pretty good time here. This is going a little faster than I thought it would. Oh, Breakma pencil lead. I'm not getting these straight, and I'm a little miffed about it, if I'm gonna be honest here. That's straight enough, right? It's nowhere near the line is the problem. I actually ripped this from the disc myself. I actually still have, not on hand right this second, but when I am in when I am in my hometown, I actually still have my childhood copy of this game, and I ripped the music myself, which is a particular point of pride. There's actually a wide majority of my current collection is ripped from physical items that I own or have access to. And I think that's quite nice. You know, a lot of people who have extensive digital collections like that, they they just went and they said, "Oh, well, I have this. I'll just go get it from a known source." And that's not terrible, you know. Just, people, you know, you gotta have time in your day to do it, rip it manually. But I like doing that. I think there's something very soothing about getting everything in its place just so. Now I can hear you already through the screen. I can hear the comments, and they're saying, Nestor, if you only need the lines at the half-inch marks because of the line spacing at half inches, why are you doing the quarter-inch grid? That's a good question. The answer is I am a fool in a man's shoes. Thank you for asking. But no, the real answer is I want to have the quarter-inch grid lines so that I know when to land and when to skip, as it were. See, the only trouble with this is I'm going to have to... You know what I didn't think about, though? All of these quarter-inch grid lines are in line with the paper itself. I don't know if you can see very well quite yet. You know what, though? You know what I just thought about? If we place it like this, we can see that we can work from point to point of these squares. That, I think will work then. So we will just work from point to point of these squares that are being formed instead of along the lines. And I will call that workable. It's so funny because, like, some of this music is incredibly nostalgic and some of this music is from points in the game that I didn't get to because I wasn't particularly great at video games as a child. Granted, I'm not the greatest at video games these days either. But I'll thank you to keep that to yourself in the comments. I kid. The only real trouble of doing this manually with a pencil is the fact that this is going to be black lines on black fabric, and so if as the backing adheres more and more to the fabric, it's going to be less and less visible. But hopefully I will have gotten it down by then. You know what I mean? Because that's kind of what happened with the previous, not Uri pattern, Segai Hana pattern we did around here, is I had done the shells with a pencil, and then only realized afterwards, as it was sticking more and more, that I couldn't quite see the lines. So let's hope that the lines stay put around here. That said, we're going to do this one second. So let's bring the fabric we actually wanted to work on back into frame here. So now that we've gotten step 0 done, as it were, we should tack this fabric down into place. So remember, this one's a 6, right? Yes. This one, number 4 here is what we're going to start with, because this other piece of backing is sized to this patch. Pap. So let's start with a smaller patch. Let's actually flip these inside out, because that's where we're going to need to pin them. Insides out. Just now realizing I have chalk marks on the outside, but not the inside. Didn't think about that, so we will just do this. That's probably roughly correct. And really, like I said, this isn't rocket brain surgery. It doesn't have to be razor sharp perfect. It just is bonus points if you can manage to get it that way, you know? So we're gonna pin this fabric on, ideally to the fabric placed in such a fashion that it is flat. Because as we have seen in previous endeavors, sorry, I like lifted this up to see and get a little maneuverability right out of the frame. Right out of the frame. So let's cram, shove, shove, cram. Get the fabric just so, huh? Now, ordinarily, personally, I would have gone with a light fabric for these because these pants are very light. But Raz had a very good point. If we put in this heavier denim, it is likely to last a lot longer that way. Which is really interesting because, like, it really depends on the, really depends on which points become the points of wear in the new piece after we have finished it off, right? Because sometimes with the way these patches land, they wind up being rather than the fabric wearing away, the thread takes the strain there. So it'll be interesting to see how this works out. And that usually really depends on, like, both the pattern we're using and the, let's pin this end down real quick. So after we pin this down, the next step is that we are to sew around the edge to get the fabric to stay put. Now, there's two schools of thought in that fashion. One is that you can just kind of whip stitch the fabric on with big, obvious stitches that are very easy to remove, with some like machine thread in a contrasting color. You know, you can just kind of sort of just whip the thread through the fabric such that it just kind of stays put, so that you can get it to stay put broadly while you're working on it, and call that good. Or you can incorporate the edge stitching into the mend itself and do it in such a way that it kind of outlines the patch. I personally prefer sort of outlining the patch. That's just kind of like, it makes it feel a bit more artsy to be framed that way, you know? And it's all about, you know, these men's do essentially amount to art projects, you know? Especially when you are, well, that wasn't a notification I was expecting. Especially when you are mending your clothing visibly like this. And this is, again, fantastic! Sorry, context. That's, do better next time. I don't remember the voice line for that one. Context, that fantastic I did was, a voice line from the game that this music is from, Tetris Plus. I would argue that the little voice lines for the little guy are more iconic than most parts of the game. So Context Tetris Plus was a Tetris game from the mid to late 2000s. in which you have a little it's kind of like it's kind of archaeologist traveler themed, you know. And so the central conceit of the new mode in Tetris Plus is that you have a little guy that you need to guide around on the blocks to get him to the bottom of the playfield. And he has very, very good voice lines. I very much enjoy them. They're incredibly nostalgic. So now that we've pinned this patch onto the back side of this fabric, and again, there are two schools of thought when it comes to which side you pin the fabric on. I prefer to pin it to the back so that as more wear occurs, we see more of the fabric. But you can just pin it onto the front side of the fabric as well. But now that we've got this pinned down, let us actually start stitching, which I had my thread right here out of frame. I don't know where it wandered off to. So, vital equipment here, obviously, other than our fabric patch and our pins. We're going to need the palm thimble. We are probably going to wind up needing some scissors, as you do when working with needle and thread. I'm going to need a needle threader because I am not quite so dexterous as to be able to thread the needle every time, and I don't want you all to sit here for 15 minutes while I sit here and struggle to thread a needle. But other than that, really, all you need is some thread. Some thread, some fabric, and a needle. You can get nice Sashiko needles, right? This is the thing, is with a lot of projects like this, you can get nice equipment. In fact, I would suggest nice equipment after you've done it a little bit. You know, after you've gotten a few patches in and you find whether you like this or not, yeah, I would suggest upgrading to nice, like a nice, thick Sashiko needle. But to start out, you can do it with just like a random needle you've got in a sewing kit and just any thread you can make fit through the needle, you know? You might be best off with something that lets you use an embroidery needle. Look at them. Like an embroidery needle and some embroidery floss, but that is a matter of personal taste. You can really do this with anything you got lying around. So we got thread. We're going with this dark navy, so, you know, I don't have any black Sashiko thread. I should probably just go buy some Rit dye and dye the some of the white thread I have to have black Sashiko thread. But Raz has mentioned that she did not mind having a little bit of visibility with this navy thread. It's still pretty subtle, but it pops just a smidgen. That's not the needle I want, and it is misbehaving. So this is a problem that is probably unique to me. I have magnetized a lot of these needles on accident with you know, some needle minders, but then my needle tin is metal, is a magnetic metal, so my needles will stick to the lid. But like I said, you can use just, you know, a random sewing kit needle to get started here. You don't need these really fancy Sashiko needles. It's nice. It makes it a little more satisfying. The needle is less likely to feel like it's going to snap in your hands, you know, but it's not required. That said, it is nice. You can use normal embroidery thread. You can just get off the rack at, like, you know, Michael's or something. Not at Joann's anymore. Y'all hear about that? Joann's going bankrupt. Real thing. Personally, I want to say I'm surprised, but, like, after, you know, these major equity programs get in, it's not that big of a shock. So pro tips on how not to store your embroidery thread the way I do it, but just kind of winding it up. So we're going to spool out a bunch of embroidery thread here. Really, I know you're supposed to only spool out, you know, as much as will fit in your arm span, but I like to spool out a little more than that because I like to live dangerously. But for those of you who don't have a lot of cash lying around to buy things, which is an increasing number of us lately, um, you don't need these dissolvable backings. They're just nice. At the end of the day, you can sit down with a piece of chalk and mark, your 1/4-inch grid directly on the fabric. Or you can sit down with even like a set of washable markers, like the kind that you would get for a school child, They are washable markers. It's just any marking you can make on the fabric that will then wash out when you throw it in the wash. That'll work. So I would also suggest testing, if you are worried about how the marker might behave, test it on a little piece of the fabric that doesn't show very well and run it through the wash. Excuse you, there should be something playing in the background right now. I said add to the queue. Oh, there's just nothing on this track. That's cool. Completely empty track of silence. Thanks. Oh, hey, the intro! I was wondering why that didn't play first. But this is I would say a profoundly accessible form of visible mending. There's a lot that goes on in the world of, slow fashion, as it were, that can get kind of expensive. This is an easy one. You just need some fabric to tack on as a patch and the patience to sit down and do these patterns ostensibly. If you don't need it to be perfect, you don't even need to mark the fabric. That said, I'm picky, so I need to mark the fabric. So let's thread our needle here. Look how quick this will be with the needle threader. Zoop. Doop. Isn't that handy? Granted, they tend to break often on me because of the way the eyes of my needles are set up, but, that comes with the territory. So now we've got a threaded needle. I threw a knot in the other end of the thread here. I don't know if you caught that. We got a threaded needle here. So now we're going to take our pattern. I'm going to go, how's this going to fit? Oh, about there. And I'm going to say about there. And then I'm going to cut right here. Take a pair of scissors and I'm going to cut this. Ooh. Just like that. And I'm going to hope I'm cutting it the right size, because if it's not, then this is going to be in 2 pieces and that's going to be annoying. But I'm going to cut this down to size. I'm going to stick them on. I'm just going to peel it off the backing. And this stuff is real handy, folks. If you want to spend a little money on this, my first stop would be an embroidery needle of some kind, and my second stop would be this. It is handy stuff. I'm a fool. Didn't I just say we need to stitch on this patch around the outside? Didn't I just say that? I just said that a couple minutes ago. But did I think about that? No, I didn't. So instead, what we're gonna do is we're gonna do it a little weird. We're gonna stitch the pattern first, and then we're gonna stitch the border as a finisher, which is the exact opposite way you should do it. Perhaps don't do it in this order. Yeah, music. It's been a while since we've had music on stream. I've been I've had a lot of concerns about the copyright difficulties that playing music can arise. So it's nice to have a little tunes in the background, And for those of you who are interested in a little bit of community building, as it were, I actually have a Discord as well, and That's actually where most of the stitching goes on around here, is in the Discord. I will sit down with a Sashiko men like this, or a more standard embroidery men like some that I've done recently, and I will sit down and edit the podcast. The one that goes up at papercutsbooks.libsyn.com, and we'll just have the Audacity project open while I'm sitting there and working on editing the Audacity project. There are long stretches of time where I don't need to be quite as active, and so I will be stitching something like this as we go. And if you want to see some of the previous streams we've done around here, something else I also wind up editing in the Discord every now and again, I'd say go check out the YouTube. It's great for that. It's on a slight delay, of course, but, only slightly. So you won't be missing out on too much. I need to get my hands right here. Normally, I have my palm thimble in my right hand, because I'm right-handed. And then I will balance the fabric with my left hand. So I'm going to come in through the bottom of the leg here. And we are going to do this. It's beginning to look like I maybe should have come in from the other angle, but that's fine. So it looks like I cut this in the middle of the pattern, so that's fun. I get a little foolhardy around here. That's just kind of how it goes sometimes, is I get ahead of myself. Nothing we can't fix, though. So we'll push. First, we got one single row of stitching here. Just nice and easy, just one stitch. Ooh, and this is why they tell you not to extend past the amount that I've done previously. So there's a stitch and a half here. And then we move on to the next. Okay, I need to scooch into frame. Scooch, scooch. Where is the frame? Oh, there we are. So we've got a stitch and a half here. So then we'll stitch that down. And then we will, underneath the fabric here, we will extend up to the next half stitch. Push that through. Like so, and I am being particularly foolhardy pulling the thread through that fast at this scale, because it will try to knot on you if you get it too long, like I tend to. So now I'm going to take my left hand and I'm going to rotate the piece here so that I can get it just so, make the pushing a little easier. So now we get to the fun part. We get to load up a bunch of stitches. So we're going to place down that half stitch. Again, I need to hold it in the frame here. So place down that half stitch, get the needle just so we can place that next full stitch. I'm going to put the palm thimble behind it so I am not poking myself in the thumb, or the palm of my hand, or the second and third fingers, which I'm increasingly resting more upon. So we just kind of load up a bunch of straight stitches, just kind of manipulating the needle and the fabric to get everything just so. And if you do it right, you can get all of the stitches in one line like that, and then we get to struggle to push it through a little bit because I have hubris. But then we can kind of uncrinkle the fabric like that, and look at that, boom, boom, boom. 3 of them pulled through, just easy peasy. This doesn't have to be difficult, lemon difficult like I occasionally make it. Even if you've got a little bit of issue in, producing consistent grip strength, that kind of thing, you can do this one stitch by one stitch, and with the assistance of something to push with, like this palm thimble, which I made this myself, by the way. that was a whole process because there's a lot of layers of denim here. Which is another thing you can see in the Discord, is process pictures for stuff that doesn't make it to stream. I basically, essentially I did this as a test for my sewing machine initially, and I was like, you know what this would be great for? Is I can fold it down a couple times. I can use it as a palm thimble, and I had been manually folding it on stream. If you check out the seashell looking pattern we did previously, the Segai Hana, you'll see a lot of that where I'm manually folding it, and eventually I got to the point of, I don't want to sit here and manually fold this all the time, so I threw some blanket stitching on the sides so that it stays folded itself. I said to the fabric, hey, stay put, and it went, yeah, okay, I guess. Because the fabric is an annoyed teenager, apparently. But we just kind of, as we go here, we just kind of finish one line and then move on to the next line. Just like bad acting. Oh. I'm a bit of an actor in that fashion. You ever hear me on stage, it does sound a little bit like I'm going from one line to the next and just kind of spacing them out. But I digress. So let's rotate again, come at this from the other angle, make sure the pushing is correct. Make sure we're not sewing the project. Make sure we're not sewing the pants to themselves, because that's a mistake I have made previously. Let me tell you, that's no fun. You get 2/3 of the way through a project and then find, hey, all of your stitches are going through one more layer of fabric than they should. And you go, oh, delightful. Isn't that a joy? God dang, this music is bopping. You hear this? Yeah, before I get too crazy on the Unga Bunga grip strength here. Here we are. This is Space Patrol. We have Space Patrol. High adventure in the wild, vast reaches of space. Missions of daring in the name of interplanetary justice. So I found weirdly that Sashiko is particularly good for men's across denim seams. You know, it is a little bit frustrating to push through the extra layers, but if you get them to be placed correctly, it's in fact very good at this, because oh, they got a big hole if they got a space worm. The Iron Eaters, they just said that was Endurium. Plot hole. Oh, that does sound sensational. Too bad we missed it by a good. For your free coin album and contest entry blank. Right, the Weatherbird Shoeman will give you a swell coin album with 3 super-colored space coins inside. Oh, it better be swell. They can't just falsely advertise things. They actually could falsely advertise things at this point in time. So context for what's playing here, you know, if you're new around here, this is This is Space Patrol. It is a old-time radio show. You know, you hear about those radio dramas like the one Superman was in. This is what this is. You know, when people are saying, you know, oh, we gathered around the wireless to hear our stories, this is what they're talking about.
The space patroller who wins the Rocket Clubhouse will also win the big motor truck.
So that's what's playing in the background. But anyway, I've found that this is very, this is a very versatile style of mending. It works in a lot of places. It works in a lot of places. It works on a lot of projects. Because it's designed to put a patch on something in a decorative... Oh, my needle came unthreaded. That's annoying. But it's really great for a lot of high traffic areas, which I find is superb for a lot of the mends we need to make in our modern day-to-day. You know, it's not we're not running into a lot of times where we are, you know, accidentally poking a hole in our jeans with something. We don't interact with a lot of sharp things in the day-to-day these days. But we tend to wear clothes long enough that are made out of thin enough fabric that they develop holes from the wear and tear of being worn. And so, you know, when these fabrics friction themselves out, the Sashiko patches, they keep the pressure off of the main fabric and transfer it, depending on how you place it, either to the patch fabric or the thread itself. So it's really good for that kind of thing. That, and it's pretty meditative to work on, honestly. It's very satisfying to just kind of turn your brain off and just move the needle in and out of the fabric, nice and easy. And these, that pin, the positioning of the pin here, you can see the straight pin. Well, you might not be able to see the straight pin, actually. You know what? What if I were to put the camera, rather than right here, to the opposite side? Hang on a second. I'm going to turn off the camera for like 5 seconds. Just trust me. Why couldn't we space the phone? Hang on. Let me rotate which side the camera is on and see once if that makes the project more visible.
Space Patrol understands his problem.
The problem with this plan
The last man at the job couldn't take it after this trouble with Baccarati started.
Gann's a younger man
for
Let's hope he's a capable one.
It's interacting with things on my desk.
On the monster Planet X,
Hang on. We got an idea.
The chair in which he sits looks strangely out of place. Massive and
Here we go. I've got an idea.
of an Oriental potentate who ruled on Earth 15 centuries ago.
Potentate. That's a good word. How's the table cam look now, huh? Oh, that's a lot better. It kind of leaves my the mess of my desk in shot, but
that power is for factories and mines. I must have spaceships, hundreds of them, enough to conquer Commander Corey's space patrol.
Of course, Your Highness.
oh, hi, Basley's reading. Hi, Baz. I have not seen much of you in many, many moons. It's been a while. It's a Pride parade. It's true. It's Pride Month. Happy Pride Month. I don't know if I mentioned that, the last June stream I did, but it is indeed Pride Month. Happy Pride Month, everyone. Baz, what were you up to? I have not caught one of your streams in a long time, and it's a real shame that I haven't. It is going well. We are currently mending our clothes. I'm going to take this straight pin out because it is... Well, first of all, it's Pride Month. Straight pins in this economy. But I'm going to take that straight pin out because it's not letting me manipulate the fabric correctly.
I'll be blasting off for Venus in a few hours. You'll be working closely with the supervisor of Venus Spaceport. I'd like to have you come along and meet him.
So we're going to bring the needle up through here. Like so. Oh, OG Paper Mario before moving on to the 1000-Year Door remake. That is a good set of choices. What a good series Paper Mario is.
I'd like nothing better.
if you can believe it, I actually haven't played a lot of that, despite my ardent love for the RPG. You know, I actually haven't played a lot of RPGs generally on the channel, which is a real shame. I'm gonna pull. There's one more pin over here that is not doing anything important anymore. I'm gonna pull it out. So, but that sounds like an absolute blast. So welcome to the welcome to the Baz audience. I've forgotten your nice little fun name, but we're currently working on a Sashiko mend. And this is only one half of the fare that you'd usually find around here. On Friday nights, I read books aloud on a show I like to call Paper Cuts. Essentially, we are recording on Friday nights, we're recording a live audiobook podcast, which you can find. Oh, if I spell it right, we can find it at papercutsbooks.libsyn.com or in your favorite podcatcher. I suggest your favorite podcatcher. That's how I tend to listen to podcasts. But we are listening to an old-time radio show called Space Patrol. And we're mending our clothes because I really wanted to lean in. Now, this might be controversial here, but I think there's a little more than camaraderie going on between Captain Buck Corey and his little lieutenant, as it were. Put rings around my head and call me Saturn. What a phrase. That's such a like perfect encapsulation of what this show is. It's just it's a almost stereotypical adventure serial. Oh my goodness. Space happy, huh? Oh my goodness. I in my hubris have loaded a few too many stitches on this needle, so I really gotta unga its bunga. The reefer system. But hello and welcome, everyone. I hope you enjoy what we do here. Baz is good, people. Half of the duo that does Good Morning Twitch when that's running. Otherwise, a very enjoyable streamer to watch. A very enjoyable, pleasant streamer to watch. So if you like what we do around here, I'm sure Baz will fit right into your following list. Endurium. Endurium is like the slightest step up from unobtainium as a material name, which I almost prefer unobtainium. I think it's a little more, it's a little more aware. But if you like the radio show that's going in the back, I think you'll really enjoy Paper Cuts. We read a lot of this sort of pulpy, these sort of pulpy adventure tales that lean halfway into science fiction. It's feeding. Because I read everything I read on the show is either by author permission or has no remaining copyright. And so it's a lot of old-time stuff like this. So if you are enjoying the whole Endurium-laden. You have 1,750. I can grant you 3 wishes, but they have to be good ones. They can't suck. Like 750 Schwinn varsity bicycles. Why do you need 750 bicycles? That's way too many for one small child. But as we can see here, as it comes together, it's just a matter of one set of diagonals and then the other set of diagonals, and they'll make such a delightful little pattern.
Just have mom or dad go with
All right,
you
we gotta
to
rotate
your
the piece
Weatherford
here
store
because I am
for your
right-handed,
latest coin album.
and I
Now,
cannot
inside,
push this
you'll
needle with
find
my left
coin
hand.
the planet contest
Well, I
entry
can,
and
but it's
free
not.
space
It's
coins. Terrific
effective.
coins, big as a $50 with designs of planets on them in
Terrific
starlight silver.
coins.
So good looking, you'll want to get more
Okay, that
of
is
the
actually
real
kind of
space
cool.
coin
I was
collection.
giving this guy a lot of guff, but like
Inside every new package
but a
of
fun
Good
little
Hot
like
Ralston,
planet
you'll find
coin
another swell space
would be
coin
very
at
fun.
your
Oh,
elbow.
good hot
And
Ralston.
outside
So
of every
turns
Good Hot
out Ralston
package,
is
collections for entering the
like
contest
it
include
has
no
been
other
discontinued, but
near
there's
you.
still
Look
old
for the
stock
package
on the
with a picture of
shelves
Commander or
because
General
it
Happy
comes
on the
back
front.
into
So go to your
production
Weatherford
every so
store for your
often
free
because
coin album.
you know
Get a
people
package
who
of Good Hot
remember
Ralston with a free
say
space
this
coin
radio
and
show
enter the
who
Name
are
the
old enough
Planet
to remember this
contest now.
airing go, I haven't had any Ralston. Why can't I have hot cereal?
And now back to our
And
space
so they go,
exploration.
I need my
These are the names of
Ralston.
Planet
And
X.
somebody goes, well, there's enough of a market for it. We should make some, golly gee willikers, by Jove, we should make some Ralston. And I'm so tempted to buy Ralston and send in the proof of purchases to this, to the address they list, just to see what happens. Like, I know, in all reality, nothing's gonna come of it, functionally, but it would be very, very funny if the people who occupy that address currently were to, like, not send, you know, actual contest stuff, but send, like, a little, like, letter based on the Space Patrol. I think that'd be cute. That's certainly what I would do. I would have, like, a little service set up, you know, because, like, it's not gonna get used very often, right? There's only gonna be weirdos like me who are like, what if I sent in a box top for a promotional offer from a radio show from many, many decades ago? What's gonna happen? And, you know, the infrequency of that would, I feel like, be worth paying some kind of, like, auto-mailing service.
What do you think? Those worms are all dead. We can seal up the holes in the ship and cut on the air supply. All right, Hap.
Oh, good, they can seal up the holes in the ship. It's, you know, you gotta keep the atmosphere inside.
But why? For two reasons.
I don't know if you knew that, but keeping the atmosphere inside the ship, pretty vital for the continued health and safety of your crew.
Worms. How do you know they're dead? Well,
I'm no spacer, but I do know that.
it was the cold that affected them. If we make the ship warm again by bringing the air up to normal pressure, they might thaw out. Let's keep it cold. But, sir, what makes you think it's low temperature rather than lack of air that stopped them? It may be a coincidence.
You know, it wouldn't actually, I wouldn't think it would raise the temperature appreciably by changing the pressure to be higher like that. I think you wouldn't be able to gain heat that way. Well, I guess functionally you can kind of gain heat that way if you think about how a refrigerator works.
Someone planned the failure of our refrigeration.
A lot of these straight pins have worked their way out of the fabric, but thankfully they're doing it in such a fashion that the fabric is still held in place correct. It's being very polite that way. After I get this diagonal line, we got two more diagonal lines, then we can switch to the next set.
Hours later, Happy sits in an office at Venus City's space.
So, like I said, while you can, you know, do the manual work as I have done to produce your own patterns, you can also buy pre-printed, dissolvable backing patterns like this. I keep moving out of frame. I keep going, oh, well, the frame's over here. No, it's not. It's over here. Gotta stay in shot.
You talk to him too? Yes. Professor Erskine examined
But
our metal leading pets.
you can buy pre-printed patterns like this. I've actually really had a good time working with these Renbird Arts patterns. I think they're quite well done, and they don't just produce traditional, you know, traditional Sashiko designs. There's also a lot of really fun, like, seasonal stuff. I was poking through their catalog recently, and one of the things that immediately jumped out to me was they had little skulls. You could do, like, a little skull pattern with running stitches, or, like, they had a little one that was, like, a bunch of little cats, which I am so tempted by.
But how did they get in
Plus,
the-
like,
who put
getting this dissolvable
Flagging
backing
off a
printed,
terror
you know,
meeting
if you don't want to
someone
print
there
it
on top.
on
Someone
your own printer, it's kind of fussy, and so I don't blame you if you'd rather buy
Meantime, in Prince
the
Buckingham's
backing.
castle, His
Ooh.
Highness is receiving an
Ah,
urgent
that's
space upon
perfectly
message
illustrated
from
why I've got that palm
Thomas
thimble. I
Redmond,
just
frantic
barely
voices
started to
earnestly
push this
pleading.
needle through
Something went wrong, Your Highness.
through one,
Lord,
two,
he's still
three,
alive.
four
He's
layers of
coming back to
fabric
town.
there,
I've already
and
heard
it
you
immediately
start
was
off.
just like
My agents found
stabbing my thumb. That's the whole point of the palm thimble here, is to push with that, so then the layers of fabric of the palm thimble here take the brunt of it.
Other agents on Terra to take care of you. His name is Brugger.
Other agents on Terra. Kruger. This is a new character. We haven't met this one before.
Brugger will take good care of Bird Gent. The
Kruger
incompetent
will
butler.
take good care of him. Yes.
Back on Terra,
I
in
love
his
the,
private
like,
quarters,
kinda,
Bird Gent paces the
like,
floor
ooh.
nervously. In a corner is
I don't know. I really enjoy these. Are they all like
Sound of
universally
footsteps outside the
good?
door
No,
starts raising.
no.
Eyes
But
staring
modern
wildly
TV
at
was
the
never
door.
has never been universally good either. But that's something, you know. I make a big show of going, oh well, you can do this with just the grid, but having the pattern itself just straight printed, straight up and down printed, as it were,
Put it down, Gant.
is
You aren't going anywhere.
But His Highness said you would take care of me.
is quite nice, especially for the turn off your brain aspect. You know, you don't have to calculate all the patterns mathematically to get it just so. It just works. You just follow the lines on the screen.
Get silent. Now lie down so you won't bounce.
No, Brugger, please. Drop it, Brugger. I said drop it.
Ooh, they got him.
Oh, you came.
I haven't been paying very close attention to this, I'm not gonna
You know what
lie.
he was going to do.
Yes, I know, and I know why he was going to do it. What?
I don't explain.
You supervised the loading of my ship. You saw to it that those metal-eating worms were loaded in the refrigeration compartment in metal.
Ah, he's the guy who planted the
Solenoids and the
worms.
magnetic heating exchange pumps, so they conked out.
That's what I
The
get
ship
for
warmed
not
up inside,
paying
the worms
attention.
spawned and ate their way
The
out.
twist isn't
I
very
had to do it.
impactful
Honestly,
if you
you had
don't
it
know
done
what's
then.
going
Orders,
on.
orders. That's why you were afraid to come to Venus with me. You never had a minor operation.
But again, you know, if
I had to do it.
if apparently a little bit like me in the moment, you're having trouble generating grip strength, you do not have to load all these stitches at once and then smooth out the fabric.
Those worms came from planet X.
Sure, that's traditional, but you can do each of these stitches individually if you're finding
It
it's
has a high percentage
a
of
little
iron
above
ore.
your
The worms
grade,
on it, and then
as it
like
were.
that.
Come on.
X is a big planet. Where is Iron Mountain? In sector L15, about 100 miles east of the Colossus River. Happy? Yes, sir.
It is startlingly accessible. Sure, if you've got, you know, very able hands, you got very strong fingers, you might be able to do it a little faster, but, you know, that's, I don't know, I've been on a real accessibility push and how easy it is to get good at fixing the things you own.
Still virtually useless. Mile after mile of the vast planet rolls under them, and then
Mile
finally
after
a barren peak
mile
looms blackly ahead
is
against the
beneath
sinking
him.
sun.
That must be Iron Mountain, sir. It checks with the grid coordinates.
Now normally I would flip the piece again here to make the pushing a little easier, but
They can have it.
because there's only 3 stitches here, first of all. You might have seen there, I started to pull through the thread. We don't want that. We don't want these stitches to tie into one another.
Lower the net, cut on the cargo winches.
I am just going to try and do these 3 stitches backwards because there's only 3 of them. And then I can just go back to doing these. Probably what I should do is I should do these 3 and then these, and then go work my way around diagonally. Like these 3 stitches here, right here, 1, 2, 3, and then this one. I'm just gonna straight ignore this singular stitch over down here. I'm just gonna ignore it. It's 1 stitch. Nobody's gonna explode.
A half unit ought to keep them away. It won't lift the ship.
I'm worried about the cables holding the net to the ship.
That's a good noise. Is that like a?
Covered with thick plastic. It's organic material, not mineral. The
You know
worms
what that
won't
kind of
touch
sounds
those
like to me?
Commander,
Now I'm guessing at what the Foley was here, but that sounds like a welder. You know how like there's a sort of like wobbling sort of sound to the beat of a weld as it moves.
Steel net is a mass of giant crawling creatures, eagerly devouring what to them is a rare delicacy. Finally, Buzz turns to Happy.
We'll blast off now.
That, or it might just be it might be just a modified bee noise.
Yes, sir.
It's a good noise though.
You'll rise up several feet with the repeller ray, Hap, so the rocket blast won't ruin our dinner party. Fire rockets. Cut repeller ray.
Get these stitches through here while pulling a bit too quickly.
We'll go up several miles where it's good and
Double
cold.
the fabric
Put the
back
worms
out.
quietly to sleep the way it did in our
Put
ship.
this
Don't take
guy
it fast enough.
there.
We'll keep our velocity down fairly low so the net won't trail back into the rocket blast. Well, that means we won't reach the reactor plant.
But yeah, I don't know. I think it's very satisfying to be able to repair your clothes. You know, it's very satisfying to be able to look at something that you know you have enjoyed wearing previously, and you know there's a little tear in it or something, and go, oh well, I still get to wear this. That, and you know, it's especially if you're doing it in a visible mending fashion. Did I just? No, I didn't. Okay.
There it is, sir. I'm going to fly as close to those towers as I can so the net won't have to fall far. Professor Erskine assures me that the worms are practically indestructible and have absolutely no sense of pain. Still, I'm going to make it as easy as possible.
Oh, well, at least the worms aren't in pain.
All right, Hap. I'm going to fire nose rockets and apply the repeller ray. For a couple of seconds, we'll be hovering right next to the towers. Be ready to release the net. Yes, sir. Cut it loose. All clear, sir. Let's get away from here.
But I think it's very materially satisfying to me to be able to look at a piece of clothing of mine and say, oh, I can fix this. When normally clothes just kind of, you know, when they're not quite able to be useful anymore, that's that.
The chill of outer space is leaving their bodies, and they awake. They munch contentedly on strands of the steel net, as though it were soft spaghetti. Soon the net is gone.
I would like to munch contentedly on strands of steel net. That sounds quite... Oh, to be a space worm, munching contentedly on a steel net.
Their tremendous invisible energy across Planet X. And in the growing light on top of the hill, Buzz and Happy...
Yeah, see? This is why I was saying, hey, don't pull so fast. Now we got a little knot here. So we gotta sit there and fuss with it for a few moments.
Hey, look at them scatter. And no wonder the towers are buckling. The men are in no danger, but they don't know it. There go the towers.
Oh, there go the towers. Uh-oh.
That mob doesn't know what to
Well,
make.
don't get any ideas.
But, sir, a few of them are running toward this hill. They must have seen us. Yes, and so did the rest of them. They're heading the other way, toward the river. Scared to death, I guess. Happy. How many men do you count running toward the hill? Well, let's see. 1, 2, 8. That's what I got. Those are the men we came for, Happy. The atomic experts Baccarati abducted. Let's go down and meet them, Hap. Yes, sir. You know, Commander, I've always heard that a worm turns, but I never expected to see a worm do anybody a good turn. That's my cadet.
Yeah, he's your cadet, all right. I mean, his name's Happy and everything. It's right there.
Space Patrollers, this is Commander Corey.
Oh, that's low-hanging fruit. That's a low-hanging fruit joke. Yeah, I know. But the joke's funny. It's right there. And I might not be joking. You never know. You know, it's not as unreasonable as an interpretation as you might think of the situation. I mean, think about it. They've got deep camaraderie, and they are on a spaceship alone for, you know, days, if not months, if not years at a time. They're a bit like they're in the Navy, not to appeal to stereotypes, but I mean, in this era, this is kind of the era that stereotype came from.
Keep struggling, Happy. Gotta cut off that before the chemical explodes.
Oh, but who knows? I could be full of it. I
How much
could.
time have we got? It'll blow up when the indicator reaches 1/100th of an atmosphere pressure.
100? Well, smoking rockets is almost that right now, and the ropes are so tight I can hardly move.
Listen, there's a very easy joke I could make there. I'm not gonna make it.
Cyclone in outer space when Instant Ralston and Regular Ralston again present Space Patrol.
Instant Ralston and regular Ralston is very funny to me as separate sponsors. I don't know, like the fact that they took wheat checks and rice checks off of the sponsor list, and they said Instant Ralston and regular Ralston are now the sponsors, is very funny to me. I couldn't tell you why.
Instant Ralston and Regular Ralston again present Space Patrol.
Yeah, it's just it's the same thing. Like, they're not even trying to use two separate multiple separate cereals at this point. But how did they lose the Rice Chex sponsorship?
In a moment, we'll hear from the noted test pilot who flies this plane, Phil Houghton. Speed of the Voodoo was a military secret, but it's plenty fast. Wingspan is 40 feet, length 55.
Plenty
weight 10
fast,
tons.
huh?
And now, Phil Houghton, recorded this morning at Lambert Airfield.
After seeing the Voodoo, I guess you know why I like my job. There's one thing about it, though. A test pilot has to stay in good condition, get lots of sleep, and eat good, healthy food. That's why I like rice checks and wheat checks for breakfast. They've got plenty of energy.
Oh no, they do have the Rice Chex and Wheat Chex
I think you'll
sponsorship.
like them, too.
No other cereal, puffed or flaked, contains so much nourishment in such concentrated bite-sized form. Do as Phil Houghton, J. Ray Donahue Jr., and other top test pilots do. Make your cereals Rice Chex and Wheat Chex.
I don't know, man. I've always preferred corn checks if I'm gonna have checks at all. And I'm probably not gonna have checks at all very often, to be honest with you.
Through the worldwide facilities of the Armed Forces Radio Service. Space Patrol came to you transcribed from Hollywood. This is ABC Radio Network.
Wheat Chex, Rice Chex, and good hot Ralston.
Oh, here we go, another episode.
High adventure in the wild, vast reaches of
What
space.
are our two
Missions
favorite
of
spacer
daring in the
men
name
gonna
of
get up to this
interplanetary
time?
justice. Travel into the future with Buzz Corey, Commander-in-Chief of the Space Patrol.
You think he's got to be named Buzz
And now,
because of
today's
Buzz
exciting
Aldrin,
Space
right?
Patrol
Like,
adventure, return
well,
to Planet X.
no, that wouldn't work. No, this aired in the 50s. I mean, it just kind of, it is also kind of a stereotypical, you know, daring do pulp name. Kind of sounds like a pilot immediately, you know.
Commander Corey and Cadet Happy arrive just in time to blast the missile chutes and control blockhouse to bits with a space torpedo from the Terra 5.
Alright, I want to load more stitches onto this needle, but I don't think I can. I think I've already punched through many layers of my palm thimble there trying to do that, so let's quick more ahead and get all them stitches through, because I'm going through a seam there, and so there's a lot of denim on the needle.
But you don't think anybody could still be alive in that wreckage? I think we've learned not to take anything for granted where Bakavati is concerned. Whoever was in that control station may have been wearing a space suit.
Bakavati must be like a recurring antagonist, because we've heard his name a few times in listening here. You know what I learned the other... I yelled about this on Paper Cuts, but I didn't ever say it on, you know, the Tuesday night stream. That book we were reading, where it's Edison Conquers Mars, that's the first thing to ever have a disintegrator ray in it. Can you believe that? That's such a, like... It feels like such a day one trope for science fiction. Or even planetary fiction. But, like, the concept of a disintegrator comes from a bootleg rewrite of War of the Worlds where Edison conquers the planet Mars after the Martians get defeated by the concept of germs. Like, what a strange place for that trope to come from. That's probably why we don't know it more popularly as coming from there, because it's such a strange thing. Like, that's the type of thing that nowadays you would hear about getting published, like published and popular on something like AO3, but that'd never make it to print.
However, we can work our way down.
I mean, I wouldn't think it would make it to print anyhow. I'd be surprised. You know, of something that, like, was actively popular at the same time. It's like someone saying, oh, you know, Star Wars? We're gonna write Star Wars, but what if, we're gonna write Star Wars, but what if Leia was the important child? And, like, it's not sanctioned by Disney, it just comes out. Like, and it doesn't even file off the serial numbers. It's just straight up and down War of the Worlds. Like, the Edison Conquers Mars is a sequel to a version of War of the Worlds where they attack New York, and it is, like, beat for beat almost the same plot. Like, it is still blatantly War of the Worlds. But it's doing all these things that I, with a modern eye, associate as, like, fan fiction, you know, like, I wrote this for fun to see what would happen if it were put in this different context type writing. Not something that gets published. Like, not something that gets published without a lot of alteration to, you know, file off all the copyrightable material, you know? I mean, there's certainly been cases of, you know, stuff like that where it started as a, you know, let's say, this is not a great example because I don't think it happened with this, but, like, let's say somebody writes a fix-it fic for Code Lyoko where, you know, Aelita doesn't hide in the computer. Oh, how does that change the timeline? And then they just polish the serial numbers off of it. It's like, oh, yes, it's just a computer girl. And instead of Project Carthage, it's Project Byzantine, you know. I'm spitballing, but that's, like, such a fan fiction thing. It's so wild to me that, like, that got published. It would never stand in this day and age. But it's like, it's the originator of the disintegrator ray, which is, like, it's such a popular trope that, like, the Looney Tunes have Marvin the Martian, you know? Who has a little disintegrator. So, like, it must have been so popular in its time. Speaking of popular in its time, it's kind of wild to me, like, how much influence that book we were reading a while back, The Coming Race, had. Like, it had a whole charity, like, convention going. And, like, it was super popular among, like, occultists of the time because of the intricacy of its world building. And so, like, occultists and people who, you know, partook in spiritualism of the time were so fascinated by it that it was immediately this huge hullabaloo. I cannot hear a word that the person who is mumbling is saying. That's the big thing is, well, these actually are old enough that you could probably look up transcripts separately. That's the big thing that holds me back from spending a ton of time listening to these old-time radio shows, is when I need to actually perceive what's going on. There's not a lot in the way of captions. But these are also old enough that, like, the transcripts are also public domain.
It is unfortunate, Your Highness, that some of your own men, your guards and supervisors, are not cooperating as they should.
Listen, what's that?
Someone's in the tunnel. They've discovered our spaceship.
Wait, listen. Take a look through the door of this compartment toward the blockhouse into the tunnel.
Sorry, I'm kind of pulling back from the camera to place all these stitches because it's getting harder and harder to push through all these layers of fabric.
Away from the people. There is somebody in the tunnel. They just come through the door.
Oh, there's somebody in the tunnel. Could it be our intrepid heroes?
Let's finish them off. Get me a blast gun from the rock.
Pull that through. And something you might have noticed that I've been doing is after I get all the thread through all these stitches, is I've been going back and smoothing out the fabric so that the stitches all lie flat and the fabric all lies flat. So that I'm not, leaving the fabric crinkled up in the process of mending this. Because, I am crinkling the fabric in the process of putting the needle in. Sewing is like addiction, it's hard to push through. I wouldn't put it that way, but denim is hard to push through, is what I will say. It's a very dense, tough fabric. There's a lot going on in that cotton. Alright, we're on our last three stitches here, I think. Yes, we are. Look at there. Thank you for the fanfare, the radio coming in.
Ever revealed on Space Patrol. News about a gigantic contest that's gonna shake this planet like an earthquake.
Kaboom! That fanfare coming in perfectly at the right time to note that we've finished part 1 of this last 3 stitches.
Yes, Space Patrollers. Commander Corey is actually giving away his great silver and scarlet.
I wonder if these are the results of these prizes and these giveaways are documented somewhere. It's the type of thing where our modern giveaways aren't even very well documented. So here we go. Now we've got our little pattern here, and it makes little crosses over. It's so nice, isn't it?
Can't you just see yourself zooming down the road toward high adventure, headed
Look
out
at that.
camping, hiking, on sightseeing trips?
Gariki says these contests are actually fairly well documented. That's nice, because if you think about there's a good deal of lost media in regards to Disney competitions, for example. So I'm glad they were relatively documented. So we're gonna take the rest of the straight pins out of the edge of this patch, because we don't particularly need them anymore. Beep, 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 beep.
You are going to win second prize, 750 Schwinn varsity bicycles.
Terrific bike, Space Patrollers. Schwinn, America's best. With 3-speed gear shift and 2-wheel handles.
And third prize,
How much do you think Schwinn made off of that product placement?
Of regulation Space Patrol equipment. 250 autosonic rifles.
Is needing my zoots right now? Did I turn off that alarm? Hang on one moment.
250 beautiful Space Patrol
Under the distinct impression I have an alarm coming.
One word to win
I am
Buzz's
wrong.
rocket ship
We
or
take
a Schwinn
those.
bike, or one of the
So,
5 other
since we did this a bit backwards, now that we've finished the last 3 stitches of the pattern, now we have to sit down and do the frame of this patch.
Rolling up to your home.
I love the shh, the sound effects on this show are very satisfying to listen to. So we're just going to stitch right around the edge of this patch, real nice and easy, real quick. Where did I put my palm thimble? Here we are. In actual funds it seemed measly, but considering Schwinn made it decades later, it paid well enough. Fair. And Schwinn is the popular American bike company, they're still a big deal.
Roll to the right behind those plates, hurry. There. If I only hadn't dropped that disintegrator.
So this will be relatively simple. We just gotta kind of.
No, you! I can't see you now, so you're probably behind a stack of crates. But that's not going to protect you.
I'm lucky I had this spacesuit helmet on, sir. That last shot clipped a chunk of crate right next to my head. As we think of something, Baccarat can just take his time and blast these crates away till he gets us.
It's interesting to hear this fading in and out. It makes me wonder. That comes down to recording quality, I'd assume. A lot of these were probably recorded to wire, or very early cassette tape.
The whole tunnel will blow up.
So, you know,
The whole container of fuel is very heavy. Give me a hand. Yes, sir. Hey, but sir, this isn't
Quiet.
So let me make sure I stay in frame here.
No, I'm just warning you. We're pushing a drum of rocket fuel out into the tunnel. Hit that with your blast gun and you'll be shot through this tunnel like a torpedo through a space cannon.
You're bluffing. You'd be killed, too.
You're determined to finish us off anyway. Come on, Happy, push it out. Roll it toward Baccarati. Yes.
But now that we're making these lines, it's very simple for me to actually use the palm thindle with my palm
He's given up, sir. He's locked the compartment.
to make progress, instead of having to push with my fingers, and that'll save us a lot of, save us a heck of a lot of work. And like with the pattern stitches, we're gonna go back through and we're gonna stretch out this thread,
Yes, sir.
stretch out the stitches so they lay flat,
Something's wrong. It won't work.
like so.
Stone floor probably broke the discharge mechanism. And now we'll have to go clear back to the other end of the tunnel for the other disintegrator. By that time, Baccarati will probably have reached the spaceship. Let's get back to our ship, Happy. Hey, Commander, I'd like to ask you something. Sure, Happy.
But I actually did these hems with the rolled hem foot on my sewing machine,
It was empty.
which made it about 100 times easier. But as, once again, proof you don't have to have all the fancy equipment here, that Segai Hana patch we did previously, which you can find the VOD for on my YouTube channel, that Segai Hana patch, we actually did the hem manually. We just pinned the fabric into place with the hem folded, and it just, and so it had the hem all by itself. So you don't have to, you know, as much as a sewing machine will save you a lot of time and a lot of work, you don't have to have it. It's a bit like power tools when it comes to woodworking. It enables you to do something, do certain techniques at much less difficulty to you personally, but it is not required.
And I hope Corey managed to
And in
break
fact,
through that
it's
compartment door back there. In fact, I hope
doing it
he's
without
right
the
behind our
tools
ship
is
when
a
I
great
come
way
out
to
of our-
familiarize yourself with exactly how best to use said tools. You know, if I have to do, you know, some dovetail joints without a dovetail jig, well, that makes operating the jig that much easier, because you say, oh, okay, well, it needs to come out to be this. You know, it needs to come out to have this sort of effect.
Report immediately.
And in the same way, this rolled hem foot was much, much easier to use because I knew exactly what the rolled hem
Alert the defense stations to expect my code signal.
should be behaving like, and so how the fabric responds to being rolled by the hem foot in comparison to being folded and rolled by hand.
Production in mine area 5 is at a complete standstill.
Standstill? Why?
There's been a large-scale revolt. 6 labor battalions refuse to...
A large-scale
That's
revolt,
against
you
my
say?
law. Tell the supervisors to drive the ringleaders out into the ice cap without food or protective clothing.
Your Excellency. The supervisors, I regret to report this, sire, but the supervisors have sided with the slaves. They refuse to enforce that order.
That's unheard of. Refusing to obey the orders of Prince
Good,
Baccarati.
refuse to enforce that order. He's doing some
The way
nonsense.
they're going to play, I'll wipe them all out. Turn on the atomic heat reflectors at mine area 5. Have the brazier. Do you understand? Drown them all like rats. Turn on the heat reflector at once. Put it, pump them out. Put in place that will do as they're told. I'll tolerate no insubordination. Is that clear? Yes, sir. Then obey. Prince Baccarati out.
But once we get this one tacked down on the edges, we can do it the proper way
if any of our ships
with
hit
that
planets, they'll be
grid we
destroyed.
made at the
Maintain this
beginning.
distance from Baccarati's ship. Fortunately, we're close enough to detect his rocket blast, even with a radar foil producing interference in our view scope. If we close in on him now, we could capture him before any of his own ships could come to us. But I want him to feel that he's perfectly safe until the last minute. We'll let him notify Planet X of his estimated arrival time. Then we'll start spaceophone interference.
Then he won't be able to call for help.
No, neither will we. It'll be a battle just between us and Baccarati.
On through the endless reaches of space, Buzz and Happy trailed Prince Baccarati.
On through the endless reaches of space. But we gotta lay out these stitches flat so that we're not crinkling the pants in the final product. And that's just a matter of, sort of holding the fabric still at the one end and running your thumb along it to stretch everything back out flat with the other.
We were here. They wouldn't dare attack this close to my own defenses.
Again, Your Highness. You have outwitted Commander Cole.
I'm going to contact Murdoch.
Can't hear a word they're saying. They're going on my end, so that's not. Don't adjust your set. I unfortunately have control of the vertical, and the vertical is not producing a very large wave. I get it because it's just sound, so it doesn't have any horizontal. Oh, sometimes I make a joke just for myself.
The space patrol ship. Commander Corey. You can't call for help from my defenses because of this blasted jamming signal. Probably been on our trail ever since.
They're jamming his radio.
Well, if he wants to fight, he'll get it.
The ship isn't too heavily armed, Your Highness.
Oh, one lucky shot might do it. I'll mend this face.
We're awfully close, sir, and I don't think he's seen us yet.
But that comes with the territory with these old shows, They were a good sized chunk of them aired before a lot of personal recording was available. Like I said, this is I think of an era old enough that this might have been recorded to a wire recorder rather than tape, because that was a thing for a while. They had recorders that would magnetize a wire rather than a plastic tape that has metal.
They won't hear you, Baccarati. This is a private conversation between you and me. Do you surrender, or do you want Cadet Happy to demonstrate his skill at space gunnery?
All right, you win.
Now listen, Baccarati. I'm going to join airlocks with your ship, and I'm coming aboard. Don't try anything.
All right.
Whew.
Okay, Happy, you take the controls.
Hands are getting a little tired, but I think we've got just enough wherewithal to at least start the next one right after we get these few stitches in place.
Ray gun ready for action.
All right, Baccarati. Just leave the controls as they are. Stand there beside Malengo with your hands up.
Very well, Commander. I'll surrender gracefully. Take me to Terra.
I've got news for you, Baccarati. We're going on to Planet X in your ship.
I don't understand.
I heard you order the glacier melted to flood the mine. I'm going to see that you stop that mass murder. And the only way I can be sure is to take you to Planet X.
But if they see your ship, my men may destroy us all.
I'm notifying Pluto's Space Patrol to pick up Terra 5 and take it to Pluto. Our interference is beamed only toward Planet X, so your cutthroats won't hear a word.
Within a few moments, the Terra 5 is headed back toward Pluto on automatic pilot to be intercepted by Space Patrol ships. Meantime, Baccarati's cruiser, with Buzz and Happy aboard, proceeds toward Planet X.
All right, Baccarati. I think it's time you reported to Murdoch.
I could make some very crass jokes involving the names Buzz and Happy, I'll tell you that much.
Get a report on the heat reflectors.
I'm not going to,
Then tell Murdoch you're
but I
heading to the
could.
forward cap to watch the fun. Got that?
I'll tell him I'm not landing at the castle first, but I'm going to the polar ice cap.
That's right. Now, I'll turn on your spaceophone and watch what you say.
Prince Baccarati to Murdoch at Black Falcon's Castle, Planet X. Prince Baccarati to Planet X.
Murdoch to His Highness, Prince Baccarati. We tried to reach you before, but there was some interference.
It's also interesting that, the villain is named Baccarati, and then there's a Murdoch. I don't know, I'm seeing a lot of lines to modern media that use similar names.
When I entered
It's
the
just
atmosphere
interesting
of Planet X,
to me.
I'll proceed at once to the ice cap. I want to inspect the results. That's all, Murdoch.
From a dozen control towers on the enormous Planet X, viewscope beams probe out into space and feel with electronic fingers the contour of Baccarati's ship. Electronic ears listen critically to the identification frequency radiated from the small
So let's
cruiser,
tie off
and then
this
let the
thread
ship
here.
proceed unchallenged. The watchdogs
Like
will
so.
recognize their master's voice, and having done their duty, watch and listen for remote ships and sounds that may approach over the infinite horizon of space. Then, within the atmosphere of Planet X,
Over the infinite horizon of space. So I like to double knot my thread at the end of it, just for safety. You know, if one knot goes, then the other knot holds still. And ideally, the further knot along the string is under a bit more tension, so it goes first. So that's our first patch for the night. Oh, and like I said, I'm probably not going to be able to finish the second patch, but we will be able to get it started. So look at that. We've got a nice little border of even stitches around the edge of the patch, and then this nice little diamond pattern on the patch itself. And this white stuff here, it will dissolve in the wash. So, now we need to flip the pants inside out again, like so. And thankfully, oh, I just dropped something. Oh, the pencils.
The water's still pouring down off the glacier. It will for a while, but when that intense cold down there, it'll freeze back into ice.
A while.
The mine. Hey, quit looking so sour, Baccarati.
So thankfully, we don't need the chalk markings for this one because the tear is very obvious.
They're men enough not to obey you.
So step one: find the patch fabric right here. Beep
You're going to
boop.
free them and return them to their homes and families. Get on that spaceophone and order all your ships here at once.
We're gonna set the patch down,
An action preview
and
of
then
next
we're
week's
gonna
exciting Space Patrol
wrangle the
adventure in
fabric.
just a moment.
Ooh,
Now, here it is,
just
Space
twinged my
Patrol.
hand a little bit.
One word that can win you a giant rocket clubhouse and $1,500. And that word is
$1,500 is
a
no
name.
slouch.
Planet X, the terrifying new planet Commander Corey is investigating. A name for Planet X, home of the evil Prince Baccarati, arch enemy of the Space Patrol. Now, gang, here's how to enter the
$1,500 is pretty good prize money for that time. Hang on, let's run that through the inflation calculator. This aired.
Maybe mom or dad can go with you. The Weatherbird Shoeman will give you your free prize. A handsome interplanetary coin album with 3 swell space
This aired in
coins inside.
1953.
And along with the album, your Name the Planet contest entry blank.
Yeah,
You can also
in
find out how to
1953.
enter by
So
looking on the back
let's
of the package
open the
of
inflation
Good Hot
calculator.
Ralston. That's the new package with a picture of Commander
I can
Corey
remember
and
the
Happy on the front. So,
command
blast off,
here. How
Space
much?
Patrollers.
Yeah,
Get your
in
coin album entry blank and
so
enter the
53.
Space Patrol Name the Planet contest today at your Weatherbird shoe dealers.
1953,
And now, a preview of
$1,700.
next week's
How much
exciting
is that
Space
in
Patrol
modern?
adventure. Buzz and Happy are in the
Not
frozen
700,
polar
but
region of Planet
17.
X. Pursuing Prince Baccarati into the shaft of an Anjuria mine, they're unaware of a huge figure lurking behind a shoulder of rock. Baccarati and the
That's 19. That's almost $20,000 in prize money. That's a heck of a lot. That's really actually quite impressive. You know, I was giving them a lot of guff, but grand prize of $20,000.
The blast with my rake. Oh, you big fuzzy gorilla. Finish them off, Granu. Finish them.
Be sure to join us again
Let's keep
next
pinning
week
here.
for the thrilling story on the ice cap of Planet X, when Wheat Chex, Rice Chex, and Good Hot Ralston again present Space
On the
Patrol.
ice cap of Planet X is a name for an episode of something like this that I would improvise on the fly.
Produced and directed by Larry Robertson. Executive producer Mike Debris.
It does make you wonder how much of this they just kind of...
Ken Mayer and Virginia Hewitt. Dick Tufeld speaking.
You know what? I'm going to pin this, the ripped fabric, back together.
And Good Hut Ralston again present Space Patrol.
I'm going to pin the broken fabric back together just to get it to hold.
The word from the man who testifies it, Joe Lynch. It's the Air Force F-86B Sabre jet interceptor, designed by North American Aviation, Los Angeles. The Sabre holds the world speed record at 715.7 miles per hour.
Just to get this to hold still so I can place the patch consistently. And we'll unpin it when we've got the patch pinned.
The D is a one-man interceptor, so when you fly it, you're really on your own. That's why I see to it that I'm in good condition all the time. And one way to stay in good condition is by eating a good breakfast cereal, like Rice Chex or Wheat Chex. They're just packed full of energy, and they taste swell. I think you'll like them, too.
No other
how much do you think he made on that,
concentrated bite-sized form.
On that endorsement, huh?
Be sure to see another exciting Space Patrol
I bet he
program
made a
on your
good
local
deal.
ABC television station. Consult your local paper for time and channel. This program is broadcast to our armed forces overseas through the worldwide facilities of the Armed Forces Radio Service.
I will say it's actually very interesting that this was also broadcast on TV, because it feels very, like, maybe it's just the transcription work they've done here, but it feels very quintessentially audio-based to me. So we're gonna lay the fabric out flat against my hand in this case. But there are alternative options there. You know, most people actually do it over top like a pillow to hold the fabric in the pattern that it is. But I find I pin down into the pillow when I do that, and so I feel that trying to balance the fabric over my hand, so long as I am careful and precise about it, works just fine. What in the world is he saying?
Lifting me off the ground. Giant native. Crushing my chest. I'll give him a blast with my rake. Why, you big fuzzy gorilla. Finish them off, Grenu. Finish them.
Onga
We'll return
bonga.
in just a moment with today's exciting Space Patrol adventure.
Didn't we just hear?
Planet X.
That was the same thing they did as the teaser audio for the last episode. Well, hey, that's how you know we're getting these in sequential order. Which is actually a big deal when it comes to these radio shows. You know, they weren't all... It is not a sure thing that they were recorded and we have all the episodes in order. There can be
the lucky space
surprise
who wins
gaps.
the rocket ship Terra 4 for your own clubhouse, a huge rocket clubhouse, and $1,500.
You know what I ought to do is see once if they have the Superman episodes of Superman, because that would be right up my
And
alley.
here it comes, pulled along by an honest-to-goodness full-size motor truck, the giant silver and scarlet space rocket Terra 4. What a rocket! Length, a terrific 35.
I'm glad that rocket is described as a silver and scarlet rocket, because that is precisely what I've been picturing the whole time. You know, that almost that sort of stereotypical 1950s rocket. You know, with the clean, you know, ballistic curve and the little fins, and the fins are bright red. That's what I've been picturing the whole time. So I'm glad to hear that I've got that right.
And that one word is a name for Planet X.
A name for Planet X.
A name for Planet X. That strange, mysterious new planet, 5,000 times bigger than Earth. The home of the cruel Prince Baccarati. But I'll tell you more about that in just a few moments, and more about the 1,750 other terrific prizes you can win in the Name the Planet contest.
But they got a pretty good sized budget for this
Space
thing.
Patrol adventure on the ice cap of Planet X.
For this giveaway, at
Commander
least.
Corey at last has Prince Baccarati in a position where the
It's quite
evil ruler of
interesting to
Planet
me.
X can be compelled to liberate hundreds of human beings whom he is forced into virtual slavery. With Buzz holding a ray gun on the power
I mean, he
magazine,
did out and out
Baccarati
call them
has
slaves. There's no
reluctantly ordered
virtual
a fleet of his
about it.
ships to come to the polar cap to transport the captive natives to their homes farther south. From the ship, the commander is now supervising the evacuation by means of a short-range spaceophone, while Cadet Happy guards Baccarati and his assistant, Dr. Malengo. Corey to Carson, come in, please.
Carson here, Commander.
How many men are left to be evacuated?
Around 400, sir. They're mostly thugs and the crew of technicians.
Alright, now that we've got that pinned,
Handle them all right?
we can turn the leg
All right,
right
Carson,
side
notify
back
me when the
out.
last man is aboard. Corey out. All happy? In an hour or so, we'll have every one of those natives down in the valley where the ship can pick them up.
What about Carson and the men from the other planets, sir? Are they going with the natives, sir?
They'll have to. They'll be dropped off with the group of natives that are going farthest south.
But I said
Oh,
that
you mean they'll live
through.
with the natives until our space patrol ships come to get them?
Yes, we'll take care of that arrangement as soon as Baccarati's ships get all
So
the natives
we,
home.
You're taking quite a bit for granted, aren't you, Commander?
You aren't counting on your men rescuing you, are you, Baccarati?
Don't forget, this is an enormous
We've got the
planet,
fabric pinned here.
I
Oh,
control it.
well, now we've got to work
Just
these
two of
pins
you.
out of the middle.
The nearest space patrol ship is
Didn't think
millions
about
of miles
that.
away.
When you give the order to cut off the defenses, they'll be here soon enough.
Did it ever occur to you that my men might refuse to let the space patrol into Planet X? They might even defy my orders to keep from being invaded.
I thought of that. But there are plenty of people on Planet X who hate you. They don't want to stay here.
So we've got it pinned here.
Escape, they'll help. Don't
A
worry
bit
about that.
hard to
Well,
see
look what happened
in
right here
the
in your
black
Imperium.
fabric,
Even
but
your
you
own
know,
men wouldn't work.
that's...
Carson's calling Commander Corey, emergency.
Corey here. Go ahead, Carson.
We've lost
Now
one
that
of
we've
our
got this
spies.
pinned down, I think we need to sew in the edges.
What do you mean you lost them?
But in order to do that, I need to find where I left the mass of the main mass of the thread, as it were.
Shall I send some of my men after him?
He's a thug and used to this cold climate. He'll stand a better chance here. Let him go.
Yes, sir.
Are all the natives in the cars
Did I
now?
put that back in the bag?
Ready to shove off to the valley whenever you give the order.
No, I did
I'll be right
not.
out, Carson. Happy
Well,
for
that's
Baccarati to
odd.
look after Malengo.
Anyone remember where I put that
I'll be back
thread?
as soon as the last car's gone down the grade.
It's around here somewhere. This might
After
turn
watching
into, well,
Baccarati later, it
I
seems
need to
like
do
the
this off
happy
stream if
returns
I can't
to
find
control
it pretty
to wait
quick
for
here.
Commander Corey. Meantime, Baccarati paces his narrow quarters and glares at
Where
Dr.
in the
Malengo.
You're
world?
supposed to be a
Did I put-
scientific genius, Dr. Malengo. Think of something. Get me out of this.
I already have, Your Highness.
Well, then let's hear it.
But all this loaded down.
The last car is about to pull out now. A bunch of those big, stupid thoughts. And a few technicians. Corey's out there now.
Excellent. When he comes back, we have a surprise.
Well, what is it?
When the commander searched this compartment for weapons, he overlooked something.
And,
A secret panel in the bulkhead. Look, Your Highness.
well,
But there
I'm
is
looking
nothing
right
in it.
past it. I'm
Pardon,
calling
Excellency,
it now.
but there is.
I've been known to do that every now and again.
A metal cylinder. What good is it?
It contains
That's
some
annoying.
air.
Why
No,
can't I find it?
Under pressure. An irritant gas. It should enable us to overpower Corey and the cadet and resume control of your ship.
Splendid. Splendid.
Well, that's frustrating.
Just press the small lever on the end.
And the gas affects us,
Eh.
too.
If you point it directly
Well, I
at
can't
Corey
find
and the
it.
cadet,
I can't find the thread, and I think we're out of time.
far the risk of it. You'll have the advantage.
Well, it's a relatively simple process from here. You know, as I've said,
Give me the
you
cylinder.
stitch along the edges here, letting the pins mark where the edge is, and that holds the fabric in place. And then we would set down this grid here, and we would stitch from the corner of one box to another, and then we would let that diagonal play out, and then we would skip one set of boxes. These say we start here and we stitch here, we would skip the next ones, so then they're a little farther apart. It's that simple. But unfortunately, I seem to have lost the thread I was going to use, and we're out of time. But I really appreciate you all tuning in. Tune in this Friday for more paper cuts. I would heartily suggest, especially if you like the sound of my voice, or if you like the type of story that's being told by the radio behind me here, to go check out paper cuts and drop in live. We tend to be live around 8 o'clock on Fridays for paper cuts, and 8 o'clock on Tuesdays for the miscellaneous streams like this. Thanks for tuning in. Have a great evening.